For more, let's bring in Fox News contributor and former CIA station chief Dan Hoffman. Dan, this has been a moving story all day, a lot of predictions, but now that some of the details are coming out, in particular the president's statement just now, what say you?
Well, I think we're going to have to wait for some more details, and forgive me if I'm not overly optimistic. I spent a lot of time in Russia and a lot of time trying to see the world through the twisted KGB eyes of Vladimir Putin. Negotiations with the Kremlin are very, very difficult. Putin has tried to claim in this case that Russia holds some power over whether the United States and Europe can issue security guarantees for Ukraine and make that a part of his negotiating plan. That's between Europe, the United States, and Ukraine. It's got really not a whole lot to do with Russia. Far more consequential, I think, is where the conflict ends, specifically at the line of control, or whether there's going to be territory that passes from Russia to Ukraine or Ukraine to Russia. Seeing the world a little bit through Ukraine's eyes, they're the ones who have been bravely defending their country's independence since Russia's invasion. A so-called land swap is kind of a euphemism for capitulation and rewarding Russia for their aggression. So those are just challenging steps we're going to have to get to. Everyone would like to stop the war, at least we would and Ukraine would, but I haven't seen any evidence that Russia would. I think we're still waiting for that.
Well, Russia knows that we know, that President Trump knows, that their economy right now, Dan, is on its knees. And right before Putin agreed to this meeting, VTB Bank, that the core lending operation collapsed. I could go through, we talked about it Friday, I could go through the list of problems that that country is having. This is the choke point for Russia's economy. And President Trump and those nations have the ability to squeeze and crush Russia's economy. And Putin knows that.
If that's the case, then let's push for a really good deal. You know, we haven't squeezed Putin as much as we could, nor have the Europeans. We hold $300 billion of Russian frozen assets, central bank assets, and right now we're using the interest, not the principal. Germany has not sent the Taurus long-range missiles to Ukraine that Ukraine could use to defend themselves and strike Russia. So there's certainly more that we could do to enforce the best deal possible that would ensure that we could deter future Russian aggression. Vladimir Putin's objective from the beginning has been to overthrow the democratically elected government in Kyiv and install a puppet regime. And the one thing I would tell you from having lived in Russia, Vladimir Putin has a super high threshold for pain when it comes to his own countrymen, sending them to die on the front lines in Ukraine or forcing them to deal with a wartime economy that's unbalanced and not functioning very well. So that's another challenge that we face. We got to be careful not to mirror image here. The Russians can deal with a lot of pain, and Putin is a dictator,
Dan?
So he doesn't have to deal with, you know, a Congress or anyone else in the media criticizing him.
Yeah, or the press. Quick question for you, Dan. If they kept the lines the same, is that sustainable long term? Do you think that could be acceptable to both?
Yeah, I think Ukraine potentially could recognize that line de facto, not de jure. So they would always consider that and Crimea to be Russian-occupied Ukrainian territory. The benefit there from a military standpoint is that those are heavily fortified lines that help Ukraine defend themselves and deter future Russian aggression. The rest of Ukraine, once you get past Donbass, is pretty flat. And so Ukraine would be opening themselves up, I think, to being more vulnerable to a future attack, just like Czechoslovakia did when they gave up Sudetenland to the Nazis in 1938.
Oh, my God. What was it? The Peace of Our Time, Neville Chamberlain, one of the greatest disasters in world leadership. Dan, really quickly, though, like inflation, we talk about it, but record high potato prices this year hit the Russian people.
Yeah.
How much pain are they willing to take for Putin?
Probably an infinite amount. There's no freedom of assembly or freedom of speech allowed in Russia. So Vladimir Putin knows he can press his own people to accept this. Now, the tipping point, Dagan, and your point is really well taken, because Putin's own security officials, his intelligence officials, the senior ones in the military, They all know that this is a loser war and that Russia's economy is suffering, that Russia's on their knees begging China and India to import their hydrocarbons. They're begging North Korea for cannon fodder, guys they can send to the front lines to go die there on behalf of Russia. So this is potentially, at least, a place where Russia's senior people could be looking at Vladimir Putin and thinking maybe he's not the guy we want in the Kremlin anymore. There are some who feel like this war won't end until Putin is gone from the Kremlin, and maybe there'll be some pressure on him resulting from the threats of U.S. coercive economic action, if not military.
Dan Hoffman, thank you. Thank you for joining us.